All it took was one survey to end his career. All it took was a single anonymous survey to bring down the man who nearly destroyed everything I had worked for. No shouting, no confrontation, no big moment where the villain gets caught red-handed. Just a quiet opportunity, a bit of strategic thinking, and a whole lot of repressed frustration. And when it was over, he didn't even know who had done it. But I knew, and I didn't feel the slightest bit bad. Let me back up. A few years ago, I was working at one of the biggest hardware store chains in the country. You'd recognize the name instantly. It had that warehouse smell of fresh wood and paint, and it was always buzzing with customers asking where to find pipe fittings or ceiling fans. I started as a regular floor employee, the kind of person who answers 100 questions an hour and still has to reset a display before lunch. But I worked hard, learned fast, and made myself useful. Really useful. I never had one fixed department. Instead, I floated. Hardware, plumbing, appliances, paint, keys, you name it, I handled it. I became the guy managers called when someone called out or when a customer needed answers beyond the basics. Eventually, I was doing work across almost every section of the store. People started calling me the Swiss Army knife. I liked the nickname. It meant I was reliable, versatile, the one people turned to when things got messy. The downside? I was making $10 an hour. This was in 2015, and even then it was insulting for how much I was juggling. But I kept showing up and pushing forward, because I thought that being so useful would eventually lead to something better. A promotion, a raise, a title that actually meant something. And then something new did come along. Corporate had decided to launch a new in-house renovation service. Instead of customers hiring outside contractors for things like kitchen or bathroom remodels, the store would provide everything. Design consultation, materials, installation, the full package. It was marketed as an all-in-one experience, aimed at customers who wanted convenience and trusted the store's name. The idea was simple. You walk in with a dream, and we handle the rest. It was a bold move, and honestly, the store wasn't ready for it. There was no clear process, no official training, no marketing materials. They didn't even know which departments were responsible for what. But someone up top thought it would be a good idea to create a new hybrid position to help make it work. That someone, thankfully, chose me. My job was to work with the in-house designer they brought in and support her through every step of the customer process. I handled product selection, answered technical questions, prepped contracts, and helped market the service locally. Basically, I was the glue holding the idea together. It wasn't glamorous, but it was the first time I felt like I was more than just a helpful body on the floor. I was part of something new, something real. The designer they hired was smart and creative. We clicked almost immediately. She knew design. I knew the store. Together, we built the foundation for a program that didn't exist yet. We didn't wait for corporate to catch up. We built sample layouts using store inventory, filmed our own promo video, and got management to approve a small budget to display it on a loop near the front. We even scrounged together leftover materials to create vignettes inside the store that showed off what we could do with a small space. We were scrappy and proud of it. At first, business was slow. Customers were skeptical, and I couldn't blame them. The service was expensive. Just the labor for a small bathroom remodel could run thousands more than if they found someone on their own, and we could only use items from our store's inventory, which limited design flexibility. It wasn't a great fit for the area either. Most people lived on tighter budgets and knew a cousin or friend who could do the same work for less. Still, we found ways to make it work. I leaned on my reputation with coworkers. They would pull me over if someone mentioned a big home project. The designer and I would tag team the conversation, showing them our mock-ups, walking them through the steps, and building their confidence. Slowly but surely, the program started to gain traction. We even hit a regional milestone, ranking number 7 in our area. Not bad for a brand new concept launched by 2 people with no official blueprint. It finally felt like all that hustle was paying off. I had a role I was proud of, and for the first time in a long time, I saw a future at that store. Then Devin showed up. Devin was the kind of manager who made a strong first impression. Clean shirt, clipped tone, full of ideas he hadn't thought through. He came in as the new assistant manager, and at first he seemed supportive of what we were building. He even stopped by our design setup a few times, complimented the displays, asked a few basic questions about how things were going. For a while, I thought maybe he'd be another ally, someone who would advocate for the program and help us finally get some recognition. That illusion didn't last long. It started small, little interruptions during customer consultations, where Devin would hover nearby and jump in with suggestions. That didn't make any sense. Things like telling a couple they should tear out their existing cabinets even though we'd already agreed to a refinishing plan, or suggesting a faster timeline that completely ignored how long materials took to ship. He wasn't malicious, at least not at first. He just didn't get it. He didn't understand the rhythm we had developed, or the level of trust required to convince people to spend thousands of dollars on a renovation handled by a hardware store. But the real issue wasn't just ignorance. It was impatience. Devin, Wanted results. Fast ones. He didn't care that we were already outperforming every other location in the region that had been given this experimental service. He didn't care that we were building a system out of nothing. All he saw were numbers that hadn't exploded overnight. And instead of asking questions or working with us to refine the process, he decided the problem had to be the designer. She was, in his mind, too slow, too cautious, too concerned with giving customers time to explore options. From his perspective, the best way to close more deals was to push people harder and cut out anything that took too long. He wanted quick sales, fast turnarounds, no time for back and forth or revision. It was the kind of mentality that made sense if you were selling drills or paint, not when you were talking about gutting someone's home and rebuilding it from the studs. He started pressuring us to cut corners, told us we didn't need multiple consultations, insisted we push the most expensive packages, even when it didn't fit what the customer actually needed. He suggested we leave out details during pitches, claiming that we could always clarify later if it came up. His motto basically was, get the signature first, figure out the rest later. And he said it like that was smart business. I tried to push back, quietly, at first. I'd step in during conversations and correct misinformation. I'd offer alternatives when he made unrealistic promises. But the more I spoke up, the more he started seeing me as part of the problem too. His energy changed. He stopped being polite, started micromanaging every part of the program. He inserted himself into our schedules, interrupted meetings, and hovered over our shoulders during customer discussions. It didn't matter that we had spent months getting this service off the ground. As far as he was concerned, we had failed to deliver his version of success. The designer was devastated. She had worked so hard to build something customers could trust. She'd stayed late, skipped breaks, poured herself into making it work. And now, she was being second-guessed at every turn. She didn't fight back the way I did. She kept things professional, tried to be patient, but it was wearing her down. Eventually, the program started to stall. Customers felt the pressure during consultations. They sensed the shift in tone, the rush to close, the lack of flexibility. They got nervous. Some pulled out halfway through the process. Others simply ghosted us after the first meeting. Within a few weeks, the steady trickle of business we had built dried up completely. No new jobs, no leads, nothing but silence. Devin, of course, didn't blame himself. He blamed her. He called a meeting with upper management and painted her as the root of the problem, said she lacked initiative, said she was unfit for the role, and just like that, she was gone, fired after 8 months of doing the impossible with no blueprint and almost no support. She didn't even get a proper send-off. One day she was there, and the next, her desk was cleared out. I was furious. She had become a real friend to me. We had built this program together from scratch. And now, all of that effort had been swept away so Devin could protect his ego. I wasn't just mad about the job. I was mad about the injustice of it. The way he erased her contribution without blinking. The way he twisted the narrative to make himself look like the one who had stepped in to fix things. And worst of all, no one stopped him. He took control of the program entirely after that. But since I was the only one left who actually knew how it worked, he had no choice but to leave me in place for the time being. That gave me time. Time to think. Time to plan. Time to consider how to make sure he didn't get away with it. He had made a mistake. He had left me standing, and I wasn't done yet. After the designer was gone, the mood shifted. I could feel it every time I stepped onto the floor. There was a weight in the air, a sort of unspoken dread that hung around our little corner of the store. Customers weren't stopping by the displays anymore. Coworkers avoided eye contact when they walked past. The momentum we had worked so hard to build had vanished overnight. Devin, now fully in charge of the program, treated it like a machine that he could force to work faster by shouting louder and pulling levers harder. But this wasn't a vending machine where you push a button and candy drops out. It was a delicate service that required trust, time, and a sense of collaboration with the customer. He didn't understand that. Or maybe he just didn't care. He started replacing everything the designer and I had created. The vignettes we built were torn down and restructured to match his bland aesthetic. The video we had filmed to promote the service was unplugged without warning. He replaced it with a printed sign that looked like it had been made in Microsoft Word and printed on the office printer. It just said, "Ask about our interior remodel service," with a phone number at the bottom. No one asked. To make things worse, he started inserting himself into every lead conversation. He'd appear out of nowhere, mid-pitch, contradicting everything I was saying, then steamroll over the customer with pushy sales language. I could see the hesitation in their faces as he spoke. Most of them walked away politely and never came back. Devin blamed me for the lost leads. Said I wasn't trying hard enough. I knew arguing would only dig me in deeper, so I stopped trying to change his mind. Instead, I started pushing back in quieter ways. I used humor, not the loud kind, but the slow, biting kind that crawls under your skin and makes you question whether you've just been insulted. If Devin made a ridiculous suggestion, I'd nod and say something like, "Sure, that sounds like a great way to lose another customer. Let's do it." He'd laugh like I was joking, but I wasn't. I didn't hide my frustration anymore. If he asked a question I had already answered 10 times, I'd answer it like I was reading the back of a cereal box. If he repeated one, of my own ideas back to me like it was his, I'd smile and say, wow, where'd you come up with that one? It wasn't loud, it wasn't disruptive, but it was constant. And over time, it wore on him. He stopped coming around as much. When he did, he avoided one-on-one conversations with me. I was still running the program, or what was left of it. But now I was doing it with no resources, no support, and no designer. It was barely a shadow of what it had been. And Devin had made sure everyone knew it was my fault. I started looking for other jobs. I knew I couldn't stay there forever. The program was dead, and I wasn't going to be promoted. Every open position that came up was quietly handed to someone else, usually someone who had been there longer but contributed less. I had put in years of work, learned every corner of the store, helped launch a brand new service, and still, I was invisible. Then one morning, an email arrived. It was from corporate. A new initiative was being rolled out to collect anonymous feedback from store employees about management. The link led to a survey, completely anonymous, the email assured us, where you could evaluate your department leads and assistant managers on things like communication, leadership, problem-solving, and professionalism. Normally, these things come and go without much impact. Most people ignore them, or they fill them out quickly with generic answers just to get it over with. But this time, something clicked. I realized the store computers were all logged into a shared employee account that didn't track who was using it. I checked with a coworker to be sure, and he confirmed it. The survey wasn't tied to individual logins. Anyone could fill it out as many times as they wanted, as long as they had the link, so I wrote it down. And I started visiting every department. In each one, I opened the survey and wrote a different response. Some were negative, calling Devin out for his poor leadership, his lack of follow-through, and his unwillingness to listen to employee feedback. Others were more subtle. I filled them with vague praise that sounded hollow and clueless, as if written by someone trying too hard to be nice while accidentally revealing the truth. I made sure the good ones sounded suspicious. I made sure none of it pointed directly at me. No lies, just truths people don't usually say out loud. In total, I submitted around 10 surveys, each one different, each one carefully worded, and then I waited. At first, nothing happened. Devin walked around like usual, still acting, like he had everything under control, but something had changed. He wasn't making eye contact. He seemed distracted, off balance, as if something invisible was pressing down on him. He spent more time in the back offices. Fewer people spoke to him. Even the store manager seemed to keep his distance. And then, one morning, Devin was no longer assistant manager. There was no announcement, no party, no goodbye. He hadn't left the company entirely, though. He had just been moved to a position on the far side of the store, handling exterior design. Same pay, same hours, but completely removed from anything or anyone he had previously managed. The store didn't fire him, but they had clearly pulled him out of the spotlight. It was the beginning of the end. After Devin was removed from his position as assistant manager, the change in store energy was immediate. No one said anything outright. Of course, no one came out and acknowledged what had happened. But everyone noticed. One day he was barking orders, monitoring everything like he was running a military operation. The next, he was quietly unpacking boxes at the far end of the garden department, helping customers pick out pavers and patio furniture like none of it had ever happened. To the untrained eye, it looked like a lateral move, a change in scenery, a reshuffle. But those of us who had been around long enough knew better. This wasn't just a new assignment, this was exile. And for a man like Devin, who craved control, attention, and authority, it must have felt like death by 1,000 cuts. He no longer had a team to command, no program to oversee, no influence over scheduling or hiring. He was just another body on the floor, dressed in the same vest as everyone else, taking instructions instead of giving them. The fall wasn't loud. It didn't come with handcuffs or a pink slip, but it was real, and it was permanent. For a brief moment, I wondered if he knew, if he had any clue what had triggered the shift. I wondered if he replayed the last few months in his head, trying to pinpoint where things had gone sideways. Did he remember all those moments where he ignored feedback, steamrolled over better ideas, and fired someone who had done nothing but try to make the program succeed? Did he suspect that I had something to do with it? Maybe. Maybe not. It didn't matter. I didn't do it for recognition. I stayed at the store for a little while longer, mostly out of inertia. I had already been passed over for a promotion again, and the renovation program was now officially dead. No one had replaced the designer. The leads dried up, and eventually, management stopped bringing it up altogether. It was as if the whole thing had never happened, like all the effort we had put in had been erased. But I hadn't forgotten, and neither had some of my coworkers. Occasionally, someone would stop me and say, "Hey, remember when you and the designer had that whole setup going near the back wall? That was actually really cool." It wasn't much, but it meant something. Proof that it had mattered, even if it didn't last. Eventually, I found something better, a job in tech support for the Department of Human Services. Better hours, better pay, a clean slate. While I was still in training, I got a message from one of my old coworkers. It was short and to the point. Devin got fired. I stared at the message for a long time. It didn't come with any extra detail, and I didn't ask for any. I didn't need to. I knew what it meant. Whatever damage control corporate had tried to do by reassigning him hadn't worked. Maybe the reviews had sparked an investigation. Maybe more people had spoken up after seeing him get knocked down a peg. Maybe he just couldn't function without being in control and eventually slipped up again. Whatever the reason, he was gone. There was a strange symmetry to it all. The designer, the one who actually built the foundation of the program, had been let go at the height of her performance. Devon, who had coasted on arrogance and empty authority, had lasted longer than he deserved, but was finally shown the door. They had both lost their jobs near the end of the year, close to Christmas. It wasn't fair. Not entirely. But maybe he got a small taste of what she had felt when she packed her things in silence, after doing nothing wrong. Sometimes revenge doesn't come in a dramatic explosion. Sometimes it comes in quiet waves. A dozen little things that add up to a collapse. A few words on a survey, multiplied across departments. A shift in tone. A missing promotion. A disappearing title. I didn't burn the place down. I didn't scream or storm out or make a scene. I just waited. And when the opportunity came, I told the truth in a way that couldn't be ignored. That was all it took.
The case has been heard. The stories have been told. Now it's your turn to judge. Leave your verdict in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe. The Court of Stories is always in session.